Overdrive today, we find out what's changed in the updated MG Hector, ride Hero MotoCorp's latest 110cc scooter, and pit the Royal Enfield Hunter against the TVS Ronin. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I'm Soini. Just last month at the Auto Expo, MG Motors India launched the updated Hector. Now the prices start at 20.80 lakh rupees ex-showroom. And the SUV not only comes with new styling updates, but it also gets new features in the form of ADAS. It also comes with new engine and transmission options too, and we'll get you all the details.
Now the MG Hector has always been a competent choice in the mid-size SUV segment. It's got great presence, quite a bit of space inside, and a long list of tech and features. But competition in this segment is now more intense than ever before, which is why you now have this, the MG Hector Facelift, the most significant update to this SUV yet. There haven't been any sheet metal changes as is usual for these mid-life updates, but the facelifted Hector does look quite different from the front with this massive diamond pattern grille. It doesn't fully gel with the rest of the design, but if it's presence you want, the Hector now has you well and truly covered. Now the MG Hector's engine lineup has now been streamlined, so you still get that multi-jet diesel with its 170 horsepower, but the petrol engine option is only one now, which is what we're driving today, with 143 PS and 250 Nm, and that pairs with a 6-speed manual like the diesel, but with the petrol you also get a CVT now, which replaces the DCT that was there earlier. Now coming to the driving experience, MG has thrown a ton of sound deadening to it. So at speeds like this, say below 2000 RPM, what you would usually do in the city, it's whisper quiet. It really is quite refined, the engine at these speeds. The CVT works quite well and really does the job of a CVT really well. So at these speeds, there's barely any of that rubber band effect, the so-called rubber band effect. The larger wheels have added a slightly firm edge to the ride, but it's well cushioned over small undulations. We would have liked to have seen some of the springiness over speed breakers or bigger bumps reduced though. Plus, over and above this, you get an eco mode which does its usual bits of dulling down throttle response, and to be honest, even in this eco mode, the Hector is perfectly usable. It doesn't seem too hampered by it. The Hector remains a competent handler for an SUV with well-judged steering heft and well-controlled body movements. It remains quite predictable around bends, and there's good control at highway speeds too. Now quite a bit has changed on the inside of the MG Hector facelift, but what you really notice first is this dash design. It's really quite premium with these soft surfaces and these gloss black and silver finished panels, and it really does give it quite a premium touch. But the big highlight which you can't miss at all is this massive new 14-inch touchscreen. Is the largest that you can find in any mainstream car in India. And it's definitely quite an improvement over the similar portrait screen that the pre-facelift Hector had. For example, the menus, they are far more logical, so it's much easier to access vehicle functions like this. For example, like the sunroof and the ambient lighting and so on. Another great touch is this Android Auto integration. It integrates into the full screen, same with Apple CarPlay. It's also wireless, so it's really quite easy to use. Having said that, some of the drawbacks from earlier haven't been addressed. For example, the climate controls are still accessed through the screen, which isn't all that great on the move. Overall, but this 14-inch screen, it really does add to the whole experience. There's a new 7-inch digital instrument cluster too. It's easier to read than the previous analog dials and displays information logically. Now a quick word on the automatic indicators that the Hector has. So it's useful in certain situations, and in certain situations you'll find that it just keeps switching on and off when you don't need it. Say for example on a highway such as this, or a large road in the city where you might need to indicate often, it's not exactly working. It does work at intersections and tighter turns, but you also might find that when you're maneuvering the car, it'll keep switching on and off. So yeah, it's a good idea. And it's the first time that we've seen it, so we'll give MG points for that, but maybe it can be fine-tuned further. Among other feature highlights, there is now ambient lighting, wireless charging, more connected tech features and apps. There's also powered front seats, auto headlamps, tilt telescopic steering adjustment, the 8-speaker Infinity audio system, and the panoramic sunroof. Now the back seat was one of the bigger positives of the Hector, so MG hasn't really messed with this space all that much. It's a wide bench, so 3 adults over here will fit quite easily. There's even a 3-pointed seat belt, so the third passenger isn't compromised in terms of safety. As always, there's a massive amount of knee and leg room. As you can see, you can even put your feet under the front seat, so no problem in that sense. But like before, the under-thigh support could have been better. It's not uncomfortable, but you still sit in a slightly knees-up position, which can get slightly tiring over a long distance. You do get reclining seats, which is always a good help. It reclines to a nice angle. It's not very easy to use, but you do recline to quite a comfortable angle. The higher resolution screen has also improved the 360-degree camera's feed, although the graphics could have been less laggy still. Passive safety equipment includes 6 airbags, electronic stability control, hill hold, hill descent control, and all 4 disc brakes. Now, major new addition with the MG Hector facelift is that it now gets level 2 ADAS, same as the Aster. And to be fair, it works in much the same way as in the Aster, so it's a fairly useful system. You can't rely on it completely as with most of these systems, but it does make life easier. So for example, it will find markings easily. For example, just now when we crossed that intersection, it didn't know where the markings were, but it catches on to markings easily enough. And there's a pretty useful graphic which shows you what the car is seeing. So you have small cutouts of the car or the bike that's in front of you, so it knows what's where exactly. Now the Hector also has a traffic jam assist function. It's pretty much the adaptive cruise control, just slightly tuned to work in traffic. So it will spot the car ahead in front of you at speeds over 10 kmph and accelerate or decelerate. Again, like the rest of the system, you can't rely on it entirely. You will need to be quite vigilant. So in that sense, the level 2 ADAS function in the Hector does do its job. It does make driving in traffic or on the highway easier. With this facelift, MG seems to have worked on maximizing the Hector's strengths. So the added presence, the better tech, ADAS, and the improved driving experience all largely work. We would have liked some of the previous niggles to the ride to have been addressed, but the Hector still remains a strong choice if you're looking for a family SUV, especially since prices start from Rs 14.73 lakh and go up to Rs 21.73 lakh.
The highlight of the updated MG Hector, of course, is its inclusion of ADAS features. And now this SUV goes toe-to-toe with the Mahindra XUV700, the Kia Seltos, the Hyundai Creta, the Maruti Suzuki Grand Vitara, and of course the Toyota Hyryder. We'll be back, Vaish. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. Now, brandishing its catchy looks and its swanky first-in-class features, we're here to take a look at Hero MotoCorp's third offering in the 110cc scooter space.
Now, for a manufacturer like Hero MotoCorp, out here in India, they are known to price their products, their two-wheeler products, very competitively in all the segments that they are part of. And the scooter that we have out here today for a short ride, well, this is the Xoom 110cc scooter, and this product doesn't shy away from that fact either. There are 3 trim variants that the scooter can be had in. The standard variant will cost you around 69,000 rupees, ex-showroom, and the top spec ZX variant, which is this one, this will set you back by around 78,000 rupees. Now, this scooter is meant to take on competition in the form of the Honda Dio and the TVS Jupiter 110cc scooters. And as you can see, well, it looks striking in design, and it also packs a lot of first-in-its-class features. But how does it fare out on the road, out in the real world? We have a short time to figure that out, so let's get right to it.
Now, coming to the engine, the Xoom is powered by the same 110.9cc motor that already does its duty in the other 210cc Hero scooter models. Output levels of the motor are identical as well at 8.2 PS and 8.7 Nm. And you even get Hero's idle start-stop tech, or i3S, to aid you in your quest for better mileage on the top 2 Xoom variants. Now, performance from the engine is just like before. It feels quick to accelerate to around 40 to 45 kmph, and the scooter feels at ease at this point. Pushing to 60 kmph comes along quite nicely as well, but after that the engine can sound quite brash with the speedo indicating about 80 kmph. So when it comes to engine refinement, there's definite room for improvement here. Now Hero says that the Xoom's chassis is almost identical to that of the other two 110cc scooters, although there have been some tweaks that have been made to accommodate the different panels and bigger rear wheel. The telescopic fork and the offset monoshock suspension setup is carried over from the other two scooters as well. And this time around it has been recalibrated to be stiffer in order to provide the sportier ride experience that this scooter is supposed to give you.
Now in terms of the Xoom 110's underpinnings, well, not a great deal that's new out here, but in terms of ride and handling, well, this scooter, the front end is really light, and in the city, well, getting around, weaving through traffic, not a great fuss at all. You'll manage it really easily, and the engine fares decently well in the city, but out on the highway, yes, well, it's still a 110cc scooter at the end of the day, and it will just barely get you to around 90 kmph top speed.
Now changing direction on the Xoom is never going to be a problem because it feels so light and easy to manage. Even taking U-turns on the scooter is a breeze on account of the awesome turning radius. While on paper the ground clearance might not seem like much compared to the competition, but the suspension is stiffly set up, so there's less pitching about, which allows this scooter to clear ditches quite nicely. But taking on rumblers and rutted surfaces at speed is definitely going to be unsettling, and it will rattle your board. The Xoom becomes Hero's third offering in its 110cc scooter lineup after the Maestro Edge and the Pleasure Plus models. But it's easy to make out that the Xoom is the most sporty and modern looking of the lot, with its sharp and edgy cuts and creases all along its body panel. The scooter also gets some deep storage bays behind its front apron, and there's even a USB port thrown in there for good measure. But what's notable about the scooter are its first-in-class features, like the LED headlight with its catchy H-shaped DRL, and the same is replicated at the rear of the scooter too in the taillight. Then again, you have the fully digital instrumentation which comes with Bluetooth connectivity and a big 12-inch wheel at the rear instead of the usual 10-incher. But the one feature that's bound to raise your eyebrow are its cornering lights. Yes, the Xoom scooter uses a gyroscope to detect lean angle and then illuminates the lights on either side of the scooter's apron accordingly. Well, we're not too sure of what to make of the system's functioning at this point because our brief stint with the Xoom was during daylight hours this time around. So we didn't have a really good chance to see how effective the system works at sundown. So we'll reserve our judgment for that bit at a later time. Now, in order to keep the swanky new design and keep costs in check, Hero has refrained from having an external fuel filler lid with the Xoom. And you'll have to do things the good old-fashioned way, by removing the key from the ignition and jabbing it in the side. Although paint quality is alright for a scooter at this price point, well, if I had to nitpick, I'd say that the level of fit and finish could be a little better as well. Now, the top spec variant is almost 8,000 cheaper than the top draw TVS Jupiter 110 and about 5,000 more costly than its direct rival, the Honda Dio. But with the Hero, you do get features like the i3S and cornering lights and, of course, that outstanding design. So yes, Hero is offering you a good-looking scooter that's packed with features, and its overall attractiveness is only accentuated by its pricing. But when it comes down to functionality, there are some setbacks. For starters, footroom on offer here is at a premium for the rider, with storage space behind the front apron eating away at precious room. This leaves little or no space for you to place items between your feet in terms of bags, parcels of that sort, you know, the stuff that you usually carry around in that space. But then again, I'm also not disappointed with the absence of an external fuel filler lid, but access to the underseat storage could have been simplified through the accommodation on the scooter's ignition. We'll definitely have to spend a lot more time with the Xoom to understand it better.
With all that the scooter brings to the table in terms of the new tech that it gets and the big rear wheel, well, it is designed to be a sporty scooter that is aimed, or it is targeted at the younger audience, and yes, well, it certainly will appeal to that audience. But then in terms of functionality as a whole, well, the scooter does have its setbacks.
It's time for us to take our final commercial break here on Overdrive, but coming up on the other side, Welcome back here with us on Overdrive. Now with the Hunter, Royal Enfield plans to diversify in the 350cc motorcycle space, and with the Ronin, TVS plans to stake claim in Royal Enfield's retro style motorcycles. Now who did what better? It's time to find out.
Now out here in India, when it comes to single cylinder 350cc retro themed classic motorcycles, nobody does it quite like Royal Enfield. You have the Meteor 350, the Classic 350, and you also have this, the Hunter 350, which has expanded its portfolio to a different, broader fan base. But now TVS has entered the portfolio with the Ronin. Now this is a 225cc single cylinder motorcycle which is aiming for some of Royal Enfield's market share in this capacity of motorcycle. Now how different is it from the Enfield? Does it have any strong points? Does it justify its cause for being here? We are here to find out, so let's get right to it.
Now, with the Hunter, you know exactly what you're looking at, and you have this idea of what to expect from this handsome looking motorcycle. But with the Ronin, well, it's really confusing because it's got this stressed out front end that gives it a cruiser look up front. Then there's the fancy LED headlight and the golden upside down fork that throws hints of a sports motorcycle in there. And then there's the engine guards and side panels that give the bike a certain amount of ruggedness. So the TVS definitely loses ground when it comes to form, but the Ronin certainly makes up for it in terms of function. With the Ronin, you get dual channel ABS with two settings, urban and rail. While with the Hunter, well, you don't get any settings for ABS out there. And the ABS units on both machines cannot be switched off completely. The TVS display is an all-digital unit and not part analog like that on the Enfield. And the Ronin screen also reads out average speed per trip, so you can calculate your fuel efficiency on the go. And although the fonts are a bit tiny, they are fairly easy to read on the go. The Enfield, on the other hand, gives you a readout of kilometers covered once you get into reserve fuel, which is awesome, but there's nothing really much besides that. Now, both these motorcycles are designed primarily for city usage, and still, their mannerisms are very different from each other out on the road. Much of that has to do with their engines, as these bikes have been designed and built around them.
So this J series engine of the Hunter, well, it's a single cylinder air-cooled 349cc which makes around 20 PS of power and 27 Nm of max torque. Well, 80-90 kmph out on the highway, a real sweet spot with this motorcycle. And the best part is, with the way this bike is set up, in terms of the 5-speed gearbox and the long stroke engine, well, getting ahead of traffic at highway speeds at around 80, well, you don't really have to downshift. You can just whack the throttle open and you will be ahead of traffic in no time at all. And that's the real beauty of this bike, unlike with the Ronin, where you will have to downshift to get past traffic in a jiffy. So the single cylinder 225.9cc air and oil cool unit that powers the Ronin, very different in comparison to the Hunter. Why? Because this is a square engine, which means its bore and stroke is identical. That should imply that it revs a lot better than the unit on the Hunter. Now, this engine produces around the same amount of power, that's a little over 20 PS of max power and around 20 Nm of max torque. Now, out in the city, you don't really have to downshift at lower speeds because this engine is very tractable, very refined as well. And out on the highway, this engine can manage 80-90 kmph at ease without a fuss. But the best part about this bike and the way this gearbox is set up, well, it just loves to be revved and it feels like it accelerates a lot quicker than the Hunter. Getting astride the Hunter 350, as you can see, swinging a leg over the seat height of 790 mm, fairly easy. And in terms of riding position, well, yes, this one in comparison to the Ronin is slightly more aggressively poised. This one has its foot pegs slightly rear set, flat handlebar, nice and within reach, but it will have you put some weight on your palms.
The Hunter will have you in a slightly sportier stance when compared to the other two 350cc cruiser style bikes in the RE shed. So taking on corners on this one definitely feels a lot better. But in long runs, out on the highway, especially with the pillion aboard, things can get uncomfortable on account of the small narrow seat.
Alright, so now getting astride the Ronin. Yes, fairly easy, just like the Enfield. And riding position, yes, now this is a more relaxed riding position. The handlebar is more upright, the foot pegs, well, little more forward set, and a very more relaxed riding position overall compared to the Enfield. Now, the seat as a whole, yes, this one feels a little more well padded and a little broader. Well, it should give you a little more comfort on the go in the long run as well.
Once I got astride the Ronin, I instantly felt a lot more relaxed. And it's not just because of the riding position. It's the way this bike behaves and responds to undulations on the road, especially that rear monoshock. Man, that's a far cry from the stiff dual springs on the Enfield. Otherwise, the TVS feels very nimble in and around the city, just like the Enfield. But with the Ronin, the clutch is super light and the levers are also span adjustable, which is a plus point.
Now the logical choice between the pair has to be the Ronin because, well, honestly, it's the easier motorcycle to ride. It has the most amount of features. It's supremely comfortable in comparison to the Enfield. But then again, the Enfield, yes, in case you wanted that little more of a dynamic ride, not so laid back, not so easy going, a little more involving overall, well, this one would be the motorcycle for you to choose from the pair.
With that, it's time for us to wrap up this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. And you can follow our latest updates on Instagram. We'll see you next week. Until then, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.